Hi everyone. What you're about to watch is a cut down version of a stream I did on Twitch where I'm going through my blocking plus workflow. Hopefully some of you guys find it useful. It's a bit messy where I'm answering questions and different things throughout, but I think it's a bit of fun and I haven't seen too much of these animation-y streams, so if you stick with it, I'll be answering more questions towards the start, and as it goes, it'll be more of a demo. If you want to catch one of these live streams as it's going on, you should go over to my Twitch, twitch.com/ChesterAnimates, and give me a follow on there. You can also follow me on Twitter, twitter.com/ChesterSampson. Links in the description for all that sort of thing. And keep up to date with all of this, and you can watch me live, ask questions, give in work for feedback, the rest of it. Alright guys, enjoy the video. Okay, so the plan, simple, of course. I'm gonna go from this blocking pass that I've got, and I'm gonna try and add in-betweens and breakdowns and the rest of it. So I guess I'll show you what I've got so far. So this is the blocking that I did yesterday.
Spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy.
Yep. Short little piece of audio, kind of like a villain speech, so I'd put him in a background in a cell. This is the Apollo rig, who's pretty nice. I've shot some reference here, so you can see that. Sort of scrapped it together. It's not amazing reference or anything, but for the sake of demonstration, I think it's going to do the point. I should make it clear, this here is Keyframe MP, and there's a software, a scriptlet it has. Thank you, Soxatron. Can't pronounce anything, apparently. So Keyframe MP has a script which allows you to sync up to your timeline, and that's how I've got this to sync so that my reference is in time with the key poses and such that I've got here. So I think, just for now, I'm just going to kind of animate and talk about what I'm doing, and then hopefully it will make sense. Okay, so I'm going to start breaking this down a bit. I did start going a bit further into it yesterday, but because the stream didn't record, I want to go straight from blocking all the way to kind of through the process that I use. Okay, so I think I'll just get a key here with the head lead and the body lead so I can get the information of kind of the lead and follow in here. Gonna ease it out. Just to start, the head is definitely leading the most, so I'll get that around. And the eye line as well. Try and make that. I'll do a proper eye line pass later on. For now it's in headspace, so it follows along and just makes it easier to pose. A little bit of a lean forward, it looks like, on the neck as well whilst he's doing it. So let's get his chest around. Bit of a lean forward as well, it looks like. What's the cog doing? Shifting his weight back. Looks like the cog's delayed a bit, so that's fine to keep like that. But I will put the weight on the front leg a bit more as he turns. And to compensate for that, I will use the hips to get a little bit of that in there as well. Okay, what about this arm? Bit of shoulder. Here he is, why? I did it! Being dumb watching a video before I thought I was watching the stream. Well, you're here now, Will, so hi. Don't know if you're that interested in animation, but I'm going to be talking about sort of my workflow and approach to this little mini acting shot that I've started doing here. Hopefully it's a bit of fun, innit? Okay, so we'll get something comparable here. Maybe I'll delay the back shoulder just to get a little bit of overlap so there's something dragging a bit more. And I guess for that sake, I'll delay the whole arm and go down it. There you go, a little bit of something dragging as he turns. I think I might do some keys on 4s or something just to get a little bit of structure in it before I go too in depth. So I'll push this back a frame. So there's a 4 frame gap between all of these. All fun and games. It is, Will. Okay, so I'm going to have a bit of ease in here for this pose. Using Twin Machine on Aimbot. I feel like translation wise, this is moving fine. I'll get an arc in there. Probably drop this down. I'll go in when I get to the spline pass and do a bit more. So I think he's shifting. Okay, yeah, so he's shifting his weight back onto that back leg. So when he gets up there, I'm going to have the hips sort of catch up and have all the weight on them. 11 viewers. Look at this. Okay, what else is happening in this breakdown? So this is kind of a pose-to-pose approach that I use for some things. For this sort of thing, definitely useful. So I've got a pose here and a pose here, and I'm kind of viewing it like two breakdowns. This one, which is easing out, where I'm thinking about what's leading and kind of what's dragging, and the same thing here, leading and dragging to ease in for it. So it looks like the head is way around. I might push it a bit more. Don't want to overshoot it, so I'm going to just go a little bit further past where we are. Looks like we overshoot the Z though on the reference. So I am basing a lot of this off the reference just as kind of a first pass, just to get the structure and the body dynamics there. And then once that's all kind of working and we can push things to be a bit more cartoony and exaggerate different things and make it a bit more fun. But for now, let's just break this thing down. So I'll go through the body. What's the chest doing at this point? Looks like the chest is kind of going over a bit. So it's going to open up and a little bit of move down in there. Settling, which I think is what I'm doing in my reference. But because the rotate on it was a little bit... Oh no, the rotate wasn't too delayed. It's the cog rotate which is delayed, definitely. So I think I'll keep that delay in here. It's got a little bit further to go. Okay, cool. Look at this. So we've only got 4 keys, but the information of what's leading, what's following kind of goes for it. At what point do you deviate from a ref? Right, Eric, how you doing, man? I think I usually try and get a little bit of structure in there, so look, it's working mechanically, but then I think once I've got kind of a first spline pass and the mechanics at least read and work decently, that's when I'll start squeezing in keys and changing a bunch of stuff, snapping up timings. I have the reference is a bit sped up in areas because I wanted it to fit the dialogue a bit cleaner. So I did do that in Premiere before starting. But definitely will be exaggerating a lot of stuff. And in the face, I don't use reference at all. I really like to look at graphic shapes, 2D shapes to try and get stuff like that to look really nice. So for now, we'll keep going with this. I think that shoulder was dragging a little bit though, right? I haven't touched that yet. We'll keep that with somewhere to go, sure. And the same with this back one. Keep that delayed a little bit, so it's got a little bit further to go. Back around. Looks like it's popping there, but we'll get some more keys in there. Okay. I'm just going to go through on 4s until it gets to kind of a hold. I think that's my plan for now. I'm going to make this key back to that one because I did some adjustments. Sure, so let's get another ease in here. Okay, so everything's moving at the same amount at the moment because I selected everything and eased it. Kind of looks like the up arc on... So I'm going to make this a cleaner up arc. I'm kind of looking at this little point here. And it's going to go over and settle back down a bit. There you go. And I'll swing that Y around so there's less Y. So all of these channels are kind of offset from each other all at once. You can see some jank going on this one, to be fair. A lot of this stuff I kind of go back over when I'm trying to mix together like a pose-to-pose and a layered method. So I think I did play around with it a bit yesterday, starting from layered, but ended up confusing myself. So I'm going to try and get a bit of structure in with the poses first. And then I'll go in sort of piece by piece through the spine and such. What's the shoulder doing through this bit? I think this is the front shoulder. Is it the front shoulder? No, that's the back shoulder. This one. Always confuses me when a character's facing the opposite way and your shoulders and arms are on the wrong side. Let's delay that a little bit, so it's still got a bit further to go than the rest. Cool. Alright. As a first sort of pass, that turnaround has the information of what's leading and what's following. I think he's translating too much. So I'm just going to grab all of my translates. And I'm going to go select these keys, the keys before the final pose. I'm just going to blend with animate, which is holding down shift on the Tween machine. And blend them like 30% that way. There you go. So now he's shifting his weight and he's not moving quite as much. But it doesn't affect any of this stuff because I blend to the pose. Instead of blending back, I blended forward to the next pose. Looks like the head compresses in and then overshoots out a bit. Actually, the whole body seems to do that actually, but I don't want to copy the reference too much. I think he has too much information going on here, and I've sped it up as well to match reference, so there's loads of jitteriness, and we'll just keep it clean and simple. So I guess for here, I'm just going to put that pose back to there. And then just for the sake of this first pass, I'm going to blend this back a little bit just so it's got somewhere to go when we eventually press line and this is going. But obviously this is way static and probably going to be crap at the moment, but that's fine. Okay. Okay, so what's the next sort of pose transition is here. Pretty good. Groovy music, by the way. Yeah, it looks like this copyright free playlist just has remixes of like famous songs and stuff, which I guess come under copyright somehow. Maybe I'll just get done in before it, who knows. So the weight's gonna come forward onto that front foot, which I guess starts to move around here in my reference. So for now, I'm gonna keep the reference, but I think it's a bit early for this accent that I'm trying to hit with a spare sound here. So I'll probably start by using a bit of the reference and then push it all back. Animal Crossing version. Yeah, it is. It's the KK slider version, I think. So let's make that one. So that's still the hold from there. And then this is going to ease out. And we're going to think about what's leading and following for the next move, which is up into this pose here. I'm going to ease out. Here we are. Okay. So it's already got a bit of that information there just because that stuff moves more. I can never remember which arm I'm selected. Okay. I'm going to push the elbow up and drag the forearm by rotating it around. It looks like it comes kind of back actually to anticipate. So maybe this is more of an anticipation frame. And the forearm starts to tense. Okay. What's the shoulder doing? Backing up a little bit. Cog, I think, is moving way less, so I'll blend that back. And maybe I'll just start to lean on this front foot a bit more, because that's where his weight's going to go. Have a quick look at this arc in here. Leaning forward a little bit as well. I guess to counter that lean forward, I'll lean him back a bit in the chest. Is a cog a control? The cog is the root, so it's this controller here, which kind of is the base of the spine, which moves the whole spine. So a lot of the spine's movement is from here. I'm using IK chest to this just because it's simpler. How do you take a reference well? Not like this, because I janked it together and you have issues like my head coming out the top, so some of that information's harder to see what's going on. I think you probably want to see the whole body as well for steps and different things. Definitely, you just want to make sure that you're clear. You're kind of thinking about animation stuff as well with like, if I was wearing a blue t-shirt, it might not stand out as much on the background, which might make you miss certain things. So if I was going to shoot reference for a film or a proper thing, I would really think about what I'm wearing compared to the background and make sure that it's my full body for the shot, or at least if if it's sort of chest up, you don't need full body. If it's close up, you don't. But if you got kind of steps and different things, it's probably nice to have, you know, full body just to see the timings for those things, even if it's not on screen, and then you can animate them and it will feel correct. Whereas I'm just going to be completely blacking it because I bashed together this reference for this demo yesterday. Thanks for the question though, Moderato. Probably pronounced that completely wrong. My apologies. I think we're going to lead with a little scoop on the neck and the head, coming up and around a bit more. So the head is leading the spine and the arm is kind of leading the chest around a little bit here as well. Okay, let's go another pose. I think for now I'm just kind of doing 4s. It kind of seems like I'm rotoscoping the reference, but which I kind of am. But there's a lot of considerations going on with what's leading, what's following from the reference, and then how to make that clearer in the animation with making sure the silhouette's clean and that the pose flows and appeal and all these things as well. Could be complete rubbish that I'm talking, but that's kind of my mindset on it. I put this as kind of a 50% breakdown. I think I'll look at that arm in a sec, but let's look at this body. I think the body's kind of delayed. I'm going to drag that back a little bit. Looks like, again, he might just be moving too far. Although I like it. I think for a push kind of cartoony thing, it might work. I just need to make this line a bit cleaner, so I might end up doing a sculpt, because at the moment it kind of inverts on itself because of the way that the deformations are working and stuff. So I'll probably end up doing a little sculpt in here on the geometry to get that clean. Hello! How's it going? Welcome to a little animation room in here. Doing a demo on this little acting shot. Okay, let's look at this. I'm going to drag the wrist as it comes up. Let's maybe look at what this is doing. I think that's kind of a clean in-pin. It was leading by tensing up actually, so maybe I'll continue to lead with the forearm and have the elbow kind of delayed spacing wise. So yeah, that's kind of delayed and still got a bit to go. Shoulder looks like it's starting to tense up, so let's get that up. Does actually look like it. It continues up here, so maybe in the pose I'll push it and make this kind of an ease. Push it back a bit, fiddle with it, get it in arc, the rest of it. Oh, we have a follower. Thank you very much, Aikyoto Kenji. Cheers, thanks for following. If you have any questions about what I'm doing or anything, just give us a shout. And I've also said if anyone wants feedback or anything, if you think I'm qualified for that, feel free to look at my work and judge for yourself. Hello, how's it going? Okay, let's get another key in here for the kind of ease in. I feel like... What are we doing here? Don't know if my work is good enough. At any level, it's a weird thing with animation where there's a lot of introverts in animation who don't want to show work, but the best way to learn is showing work, so it's a weird balance. I mean, if you are looking for any kind of feedback to learn, then drop me a sync sketch link. If you don't know, syncsketch.com is a really good feedback tool where you can sync up with someone and they can draw over and look at frames and that sort of thing and talk about your work. So I'd highly recommend that. Okay, I haven't really put in this head lead in here. I just realized, so let's get that up a bit. Freelance be a freelance animator. Oh, sorry, I thought we were talking about feedback. Okay, let me try and get a succinct thought about being a freelancer. I think it's hard to start. I've been a freelancer for a year and work has got faster and faster coming in as I've been going because I've had more work online, social media and such has got bigger, so more people are aware of my work and that sort of thing, so it helps. I think there's different levels. You can be a freelancer as a junior in a position as well. So it really depends on the level you're at and what kind of work you're applying for and trying to get to. I mean, if you look at like bowling videos, it always makes me laugh when you go to a bowling rink and you see the animation that's on a bowling. Someone animated that maybe like 10 years ago and they're terrible. Someone gets paid for that, right? So there's work out there. It's just you need to apply around to a bunch of stuff. Where do you find your freelance work? LinkedIn. Post your work on LinkedIn. Make sure it's a video, not a link to a video, because people are way too lazy to click on it. Share it and get your friends to share it and that sort of thing, so that it helps with exposure. For me, people have seen the work that I've posted, and then I've been offered work from that. And then other freelance work I've got from seeing positions open on LinkedIn. Freelance is more about being on top of it because they're quicker jobs. It's usually a company is like, oh, okay, damn, we need an animator in 2 weeks for a month. So they'll start looking on LinkedIn. They'll just post something. Interesting. It is interesting. Hopefully. Maybe I'm just chatting rubbish. How does it compare from working in a studio? I really like working in the studio. Working remote's been weird. Yeah, I do miss it. I'm quite a sociable person. I like going to the pub on a Friday after work and get to know people. And also just like what I'm doing here, I'm trying to replicate what people did for me when I was learning, which was I would just sit next to them and watch them animate. And the monkey see, monkey do part of my brain would just kick in, you know. So I miss doing that a lot. And for feedback and, I don't know, tons of things for both professional development and personal, like, social life. I like going into somewhere. Although it is nice for life structure and the rest of it working remote. So personally, I'd like a hybrid of it in the future, I think. All right, I haven't actually touched the animation in about 5 minutes. Been talking. Where am I? Okay, he's coming. The weight's coming forward onto this leg. Make sure that this is to this leg. I want to be able to see this eye as early as possible when his head comes around. Right now it's kind of like he's doing a big breakdown in the middle, when in reality it's not all that much. I might push it and be a bit snappy with it when I get to the animation. Wow, spline. I'm animating now, obviously. How do people submit stuff to you for feedback? Just post a sync sketch link in the chat and ask me to have a look, and we can go over it. Try and do a quick, like, 10 minutes, have a look at it and do some drawings over stuff and that sort of thing. So yeah, if anyone wants me to have a look at their work and they think I'm sufficiently qualified to do so, then feel free, you know. Okay, I'm gonna get some more keys in here so that I can get some more information in the blocking. Sync Sketch is free, yeah. If you just go on Sync Sketch, you can upload work. Let me show you. If I just type in syncsketch.com, you go on Upload and Create. You can drag and drop in your movie file in here, and then it will give you like a timeline thing, like this. Let's have a look. First person submitting feedback on the stream. Come on.
A few moments later.
Really helped. Okay, well, thanks, man. I hope it does. There's animations, so like, there's so many different areas that you need to learn, and you keep learning and you keep learning on them, and it's just there's layers to it. You think you start to get really good, and then you look at some work that just blows your mind, and you don't even know how they've done it. There's shots that I break down. Look, I think I start to understand, and then there's another layer to it that when I learn something else, I look back at the shot and there's something else going on that I've just learned that they've also implemented, and it just keeps going. It's crazy, man. How long have I been in the industry? I've been working for about 3.5 years. Worked in TV and commercials and tiny bit of game stuff, but it wasn't actually games. It was like a cinematic thing. And then I'm going on to my first film in the new year. Okay, back to the shot. Sorry, we were doing feedback for a little while there. Let's get back to the demo. Where are we? He's coming up. Okay, I was about to do something with these poses, right? He's coming up here. Let's keep that clean. I'm gonna just put it on 4s, I think. This 4s? Looks like 4s. Yeah, it's 4s. Okay. Okay, I'm just gonna make this an ease and then an ease in and then start filling with it. It looks like the hand overshoots at this point. I'm just going to try and get something in here. Let's overshoot the shoulder a bit. And the head. The head's got going up and it's still got somewhere to go on the way back around. It's not going to go that far. I'll add another reason in a sec. Let's check the arc on this sort of hand and stuff around here. Make sure it's sort of going in a nice way. Yeah, I think that's okay for a first pass. Look at the cog. Maybe we can have him sort of come up from the down and then he can later settle back down onto here. And what the rotation's doing. Looks like it's still coming around through this. Let's maybe have him coming around as it goes. Just kind of tracking this by eye. Later on when I get into the graph editor, we'll clean all that stuff up. Because his weight's coming down, this is when we really want to get that hip reactant to it onto that front leg, so the weight is really being passed over. Okay, I think I want to get the neck involved in this overshoot just so that it's going over a bit more, but not too much. Carry on. Yeah, that's cool. Let's go 4 more frames and ease. Okay, it looks like this does a little arc at the top, and at this point it's starting to come back down. So let's get that happening. Maybe get a bit more of an arc in here. Let it have somewhere to go. And the shoulder's kind of leading it back down this time. Whereas the forearm and wrist are going to be a bit delayed. Looks like in my reference the head just carries on around. Let's ease this around. Make sure that that's kind of in arc for now. Okay, we've gone up here. I kind of want to get that down. Down a bit earlier. And we can keep that rotating around a bit. So this, I'm kind of going straight ahead at this point because this pose blends into this pose so much. Look, I'm now thinking about, yeah, I'm just pretty much easing back out of this one into the next one. I have to follow every single animator that I see. That's a good thing to do. Definitely. I follow tons of stuff just to keep the inspiration up. There's lots of good kind of tips and stuff. Okay. So let's continue this drag on the wrist and a little bit on this as this comes around. This is leading, so I'm going to get that down. And the chest, looks like the chest is kind of leading the rotation of this whole thing, of the spine, by that I mean. Yeah, this back arm looks ugly, so I'm just going to keep that hidden for now. I don't really care what's going on behind what I can't see. I animate a hell of a lot to camera space if you haven't noticed. That's kind of what I'm doing. Okay, let's keep this coming around. It's got somewhere to go. I feel like the neck's kind of starting to drag here. Let's drag that a bit. What's the cog doing? It'll ease out as that leg comes around, and he's pushing back onto that back leg, right? Oh no. Let's just get my camera in here. Let's just make sure that this spacing onto that back leg is working. I haven't really looked at this in a while. Yeah, this one feels kind of isolated and gross. So let's. Okay, so I can even start to ease it so that it kind of flows into the next pose from this pose, right? So there you go. You can see how that spaces around, comes back around, and it's going to come back up onto that back leg. So that this leg can come off the ground. So for this one, the legs shouldn't be moving at all because his weight's still forward. Okay. Because the weight is still a fair bit forward, I'm going to delay the hips for this bit. And what's the chest doing here? I'm kind of doing it, I can kind of imagine a snake thing going on here where the hips are going to lead, which then the chest is going to come round and then it's going to come back up a little bit, just get a little dip in there.
Spare me the comedics, you deplore.
Let's have a look at it.
Spare me the comedics, you
Okay,
deplore.
we're starting to get some information in there in the block in here.
Spare me the comedics, you deplorable. Spare me the comedics.
Nice. Refresh. Let me have a quick look at this. Wow, 13 viewers. Look at this. Amazing. Okay, so let's continue this. It's easing out. Look at that. That chin is starting to delay in space. Ooh. Where are you guys from then? I can't read this language. I feel like that neck shape is horrible. That's why I'm pushing that. Very unappealing. I'm just kind of easing that around. Yeah, so that isn't too noticeable in that transition. And that way I don't have a lumpy neck. Cool. Learning Japanese. Ah, cool. When I was a teenager big into anime, I wanted to learn Japanese, but I'm terrible with languages. Lumberjack M, thank you for the follow, my guy. If you're new and you have any questions about kind of my workflow and what I'm doing right now, feel free to ask. For a bit of fun on when the arm is coming down, I might lead a bit with the bembos in here. And thank you, Mora King, as well, for following. I don't know if I've really gone down on this shoulder, but the shoulder's going to overshoot down and come back up during this bit. But let's just keep going on 4 frames. 4 frames is working out great for me here, so 4 frames later, it's still kind of easing. I wouldn't say it was in the middle yet. I'd say it's kind of more towards this side. Hey man, how's it going? Okay, that arm is really coming around, isn't it? Although it looks like it's coming around, but the elbow is kind of in space. Let's try that. But this part of the arm is really starting to catch up now. Let's maybe have this start to come now. This playlist has got some proper bangers on it, jeez. Okay, this arm. I think we want to have it come round a bit more. Simple shape to camera. We delay it a bit. What's the shoulder doing? Maybe we could consider this the bottom position of the shoulder. You like Pokemon? Very cool. I wish there were some good Pokemon rigs actually. It'd be really fun to animate some Pokemon. Sadly, I'm only an animator and don't have a clue how to rig. Okay. So this leg is going to start to come off the ground around this frame. So let's keep it back, but maybe tiny bit of movement in there. Can't really see it, so I'm not too bothered about the rotation. I just want to make sure that it's doing what mechanically it would do. And it looks like the chest is mostly round, but the body's kind of delayed, so let's push the chest around a bit earlier. And then the hips can catch up. We can get those hips back onto that back leg a little bit earlier as well. A lot of this is going to end up changing when I get into more of a layered workflow for spline, but for this kind of blocking plus pass, it's kind of trying to get a lot of the information and structured there as early as possible. Quite like, I might push this pose a bit in the Z because it looks like I'm kind of leaning over at the chest here. It's kind of delayed through here and then it catches up. I guess it's kind of like the shoulder is pulling his whole weight down. How old are you? How long do you animate? I think by that you mean how long have I been animating for? I'm 25, turned 25 a few weeks ago. I've been animating professionally for 3.5 years or so, and before that I was animating at university for 3 years, so about 6.5 years it sounds like, which is ages. At uni I was more of a generalist, and then I got properly into animating when I finished uni and tried to get a job. Okay, so this neck was dragging, and then it looks like it starts to catch back up in here. Maybe I'll get a little bit of drag through here, so it's got somewhere to go. So that top of the head is leading the neck around. 24. That's cool, man. Have you studied animation at university or anything, or are you sort of self-taught? How are you doing with all of it? Yeah, let's get this arm around. Cool. Let's go for another pose. 4 frames again. And this is starting to ease in. So we're on this side of the toy machine now. What software do you use for your ref video? Is it a window from Maya or something else? This is Keyframe MP. It's about a £40 piece of software, and it has a script which allows you to sync up your animation scene in Maya to the reference, so that we don't have like heavy, what are they called, image planes. You don't have heavy image planes because it's running through a separate software, so it doesn't slow down your frame rate in Maya at all, and allows you to kind of animate a bit quicker. Graduated at game development, 1 semester learning animation. Yeah, that's often the case with courses. Like the course I did was supposed to be like the best animation course in the UK at Bournemouth University. They don't teach too much about animation. They're very good at technical stuff and coding and that side of things, which I didn't really succeed at all. But in terms of animation, you don't get too much education, so a lot of it was self-taught after university to get my first job, and then finish uni. I did a course with Anim Dojo because they used to do courses. Now they just have like an archive of live streams and videos and stuff on their website. But yeah, that was also super useful. What was I looking at? This. I was looking at this arm because the arm seems to be doing something weird. So I'm going to select all of it in my picker and try a Euler filter and see if it changes the curves at all. Which it didn't, which makes me think it might be gimbaled. But this rig has quite a good way of getting around gimbal. So let's look at this. Yeah, so if you guys don't know what gimbal lock is, if you go to gimbal, hold down E, which is the rotation tool. W is translate, E is rotate. If you hold it down and click, you get these different things. So you can get a world space, which you use quite a lot. But gimbal shows you what these channels are actually doing in world space, and it looks like they've kind of overlapped with each other, which is not ideal at all. So what I can do with Animbot is this rotation order thing, and it's going to tell me which one is best. And I can switch all the keys to the best one. I'll chuck a Euler on that as well, just because sometimes it messes up. And now, if I look at the gimbal, I am on the gimbal, and it looks clean and nice because it matches the way that I've been using the rig. So I probably just need to instead make this, yeah, more of a in-between, and then we're back in where we need to be. It looks like I'm trying to keep this arm back quite a bit through this, so maybe I'll just keep it hidden and just have it start to come out for these frames. At this point, I don't even know what the curves are doing at all. This is just all to camera. Personally, don't even necessarily like seeing it for that whole section, so maybe I'll just cheat it behind the arm and Then I don't have to bother about it, do I? Get my picker back up. Here it is. So yeah, let's just hide this arm through this whole section, and then I don't even have to figure it out until we come into this pose where he tenses up. No prob. So let's have a look at what we've got. It might be a bit choppy.
Spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy.
So yeah, just by sort of going through every few frames and thinking about lead and follow and getting the mechanics kind of working, it's starting to come together.
Spare me the comedics, you
So because the shoulder was leading, maybe I'll overshoot it back here. And the arm can overshoot back a bit here as well. And start to settle back forward. This was leading before, right? So this can... Maybe that's a bit too much. Get a little bit of an overshoot in here.
Spare me the comedics, you
Yeah, it's a bit choppy at the moment, but we'll figure out.
Spare me the comedics, you spare me the comedics, you
Okay, cool. So I think we kind of got most of this kind of pose transition figured out. Maybe I'll do one more ease in before we start coming up again. So I'll just chuck an ease in here. Now, make sure that this is arcing around. Everything's kind of moving the same because it's all tween the same at the moment, so that's... I feel like maybe we want to have this way towards, because it's starting to ease out towards the next pose now. So maybe I start to blend this forward even a little bit to really start to get this to lead now. Which is when the weight's starting to come onto this leg, which has gone forward. But I want to get that knee round. I want to get that knee round a lot earlier. Let's have that come around. Yeah, there you go. That's going to be a lot nicer. Maybe I should just play blasters so you guys can see where it's at. Cool. So this is kind of blocking plus is what I would call it before I get into spline. It's not done all the way through, but you'll see.
spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy. Spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy.
Cool, it's starting to come together.
Spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy.
Cool, alright. Let's keep going. Alright, now we're going towards this pose. So we're leaning forward onto this weight. Looks like that back leg is, back arm, sorry, is starting to come around. Like it comes out actually, doesn't it? Looks like it comes out in order to allow the wrist to flick around in the reference. Let's do that. And the shoulder's kind of coming wide and up a bit. Yeah, to get up to there. What else we've got going on? Big things that I see. We've got the head delaying. It's tensing up for this big sort of tension that he's doing in here before he comes up. Okay, what else is happening? This shoulder's starting to come up and come round. Oh no, wait, I did that in the wrong frame. Yeah, the shoulder's starting to come up and round. Cool, which means we probably need to start getting this arm coming through here for this. What's happening with the cog? It looks like I came up on the last one, so I might kind of keep him up for this frame. And then he can come back around onto this leg. Let's have a quick look at what's happening in terms of forward and back. Back. Yeah, starts to ease forward. That's what we want. What's the chest doing? Chest is still coming around through here. And it's coming around in here as well, isn't it? And he's starting to lean in. Cool. Let's get another breakdown in here towards this tension pose. Maybe get a bit of an ease in. What's happening with the cog? Should be your catchphrase. What is happening? It's important. You got to see what's happening with the cog, haven't you? I don't want to delay. I'll do a proper finger pass at some point. But it looks like he's going from kind of a wider shape to a narrower shape. So let's get that in my blocking, just so that it's there for when we get to it properly in spline. Let's get this sprayed out a bit. This control's really good for that sort of thing. There you go. Sprayed out, and then it comes in and tenses. I think we should have a look at what this wrist is doing in space. It's coming forward. It's a bit awkward to see with the environment in the way. So let's maybe have it come out, around, and back in. And the wrist is going to be, yeah, a bit delayed. Maybe flick it around. Looks like in here we're starting to get a bit of head lead for the next move. So all of these poses, they kind of connect into the next one. So while something's easing into this pose, something's already easing back out for the next pose, because that head's going to lead this coming up, but the neck is still coming forward. What's the chest doing? Still leaning forward, I'd say. Cool. Cool. We're getting through this, aren't we? It comes around, starts to tense up, and then we run out of keyframes, but we'll get there. So he's already coming around for this, but I quite like the idea of holding here for a little bit longer. So how am I going to do that? So this, okay. So I'm just going to ease in to this for an extra 4 frames. And then I'll do what he's doing so that it matches the peak of the audio more for that deplorable sound. So we're going off the reference here already, just to try and get the kind of animation working the way we want it. So let's have this ease in. Looks like I'm only looking at the chest though, so let's make sure everything's keyed on these poses. And we'll have this ease in. Maybe I'll do this one. So I can't really look at the reference for this, so instead I'm going to make sure that this is arcing the way we want it to arc. So I'm going to maybe have it come round forward. So let's go in this way, around and out, and then it can follow around and out, swing back in for the next move. Cool. And we can keep, as this is coming up, we can keep the shoulder going. Maybe I'll do this as a little ease in to keep it going. Bang. And then it can come around. So that head, I'm going to delay a bit longer, and it can, because the head is the first thing to lead, it can start leading on this frame here to come back up. How's this looking? Bang, it's going to come up. Okay, that's fine. Back shoulder. Still coming up. Maybe you want it to come back a bit more when it's coming up. So let's have this ease towards that. And as his weight's coming onto that front leg, I'm going to make sure that this is constantly going this way, rotating onto that front leg. Cool. We're miles behind the reference now. But I think I can offset it using the keyframe MP tool I was talking about earlier, which is this tool. But I might be out of my current knowledge. Okay. Let's just... It's going to be quite snappy, so this ease out is kind of going to be almost a breakdown, with certain things easing out and certain things leading. So the head, of course, we talked about how that's going to be leading round, especially in the Z. And I want the neck to kind of carry on with that as well. So that neck is leading the rest of the body. And whilst that's going that way, the body actually comes around quite a bit this way. So maybe I want to get that in my animation. So I'm not scared to change my key poses. The key poses are there, but perfectly fine with changing them to get it. I quite like this, to be fair. I mean, I can even push the arm so it's clearer silhouette. And then he can come background on himself with this. Okay, so this is going to be more of a snag, right? So he's going to come under and kind of catch. Let's get that working. Maybe loosen the arm for this frame so we get that under arc. And the shoulder can overshoot down and lead a bit as well, so it comes back around. Big arc on that. I'm going to select all the fingers, got a little thing for that, and maybe blend them back a bit. So the clench of the fist isn't leading. Kind of delayed a bit. What's the cog doing? I think the cog is going to be the thing that's delayed the most because we're going from the head down the spine. So the head's leading, chest's going to be second, and then the cog. So let's have that a bit delayed, coming up. See what the rotations are doing. Maybe I'll delay him a little bit. So it comes up. Bang. I kind of want to... Maybe this can be delayed a bit. Kind of looks like it's going in a weird direction now though. Okay, cool. So that can be a bit delayed. Coming down with the shoulder leading for this one. We can get a little bit of squash and stretch in here if we want with the old top controller. We can lead with the top of the head. Get that around. Maybe even really go graphic with it and get like, oh, whoops, get like a little bend in the middle so that his jaw is delaying back around a bit. Look at that. So that's maybe too much for the style that I'm going for, so I'm just going to blend it back to default a little bit, like 20%. But you get quite a fun thing going around. You like that, lol? I think what's going on with the chest? Delay the rotation X of it and have the Z come up. Thank you very much, Yuangra. Currently doing a blocking plus pass of this kind of acting shot. Just kind of going through, mostly on 4s at the moment, just to get it kind of all the way through and fleshed out, and then when we get into spline I'll switch over to more of a layered workflow, but at the moment I'm just trying to get it. I'm a lot more comfortable with pose to pose, but you can get some really nice stuff with layered, so for now I'm going pose to pose, but then I'll switch over to layered. Yeah, I think this would look cool. Don't know how I'm gonna, we'll figure that out when we get to it. Okay, what's happening with the hips on here though? We're still kind of down on here, so we'll keep that on that front. I know we're coming onto the front leg more as this goes, I think. Maybe I'll keep that back so it's got somewhere to go. Okay. Thank you, Jack, for following. I hope you can hear the Spider-Verse sound effects that I've added in for this. which I think are quite fun. Cool. So this is going to be a bit of an ease in with certain things overshooting, certain things catching back up. So this arm, because it was going so far, the arm and the head are probably going to be overshooting. The rest is going to be catching up still. So that's... I'm looking at this elbow right now. I want to get the elbow to come around in an arc, and maybe the elbow can overshoot and come back. So here you go. It's got a little bit of somewhere to go, and that's going to affect the top of the arm as well. Maybe I'll overshoot around in the X so it comes back on itself. Probably want to have the fist tense by this point, so I'll blend that forward. Maybe a bit of delay in the wrist. There you go. So it kind of compresses as it comes in. And maybe I'll do the same thing for this, so it compresses as it comes in. And the shoulder, to keep that all connected. This can come round a bit too far, and then it's got a little bit to go as it comes back, like that. Okay, so the head as well is the other thing that I wanted to overshoot. Let's get the neck up. Still wanting to be going right to left, but I just want to get maybe the rotate of it to be over where we're going. So it's got somewhere to go. I don't want it to be too floppy because he's like intensely looking at someone. That's kind of like the acting choice. Love Spider-Verse. We do love Spider-Verse. If you're an animator, you see this. Very nice. Gonna delay this arm. Ooh, it's kind of gross. Let's just ease it. Okay, let's go down the spine. So we did the head. I'm going to do the chest. So the chest was kind of dragging a bit, especially in the rotate. So maybe I'll get a little bit of drag in the rotate still as it comes up. But he's leaning in at the same time. Okay, so he leans. Maybe I should do a quick thing where he leans and comes back around on itself like that in the Z. This is all stuff I'm going to have to clean the hell out of because I haven't looked at the graph editor at all. Alright, let's have a drink. Cool. So I'm going to go full frames ahead as I've been doing. Key all of the controls, so it's the same sort of thing. Thanks for the share, whoever that was. Broken Tangent. Thank you, Broken Tangent, for sharing. Okay, let's keep this easing. And this time, we've had the head overshoot and it's coming back to cell. But I'll quickly make sure that the arc is sort of going somewhere. Maybe even I'll have it come overshoot in the Y so it comes back round on itself. So now the chest, which was delayed but is the next thing, might overshoot a little bit. Looks like it's doing something funky in there, so I'll make sure. Maybe it'll... I like the idea of the chest being pulled around by the arm, so maybe I'll get that working, but it's a bit delayed from the body. And maybe that can overshoot that way back on itself. I'm just looking at this kind of cross section here, how this kind of overshoots a bit and comes back. Maybe make sure there's an arc in this coming over as it comes and compresses in. Okay, and the root is the other thing. So the root, I'm kind of treating these as all separate pieces. So the root's still a bit delayed from the rest of it. And in terms of this big spacing in here, so maybe I'll make that a little bit more linear and then it can go a bit further here. The translation is not as delayed as the rotation. Cool. There you go, we got that big push up. I think I want to, from looking at this, I want this arc to carry on round. So I'm going to have this come in and overshoot back. Cool, we're getting there. We've almost got a blocking plus pass. And then mechanically it's kind of working. There's a tons of stuff that will be snapped up a bunch when we get into spline. And I'll push some keys around to really get that working. Okay. So where are we going? 1, 2, 3, 4. We love every 4 frames, just because then, if I want to break things down further, I can go on to 2s. But I will be going on to spline and everything will be getting messy anyway, so. Cool. So here, we're starting to anticipate for this come down here. So I'm going to keep it easing, however, just to make sure that all the controls have movement. And this head is the thing that's going to be, once again, leading around. And he's going to be do this fun little tense up with the head, and then the head's what's going to push down and lead on the way back around. But let's keep an eye on some of these rotations. Kind of like the Z may overshoot up and come back down a bit, but we'll keep that coming around. If anyone's got any questions, as I say, it's been a minute since anyone's asked anything. Hopefully that means that what I'm saying makes sense. Keep this delaying and coming around. Just tiny little micro things, but I'm just looking at this intersection and making sure that it's kind of arcing around. But yeah, I did the cog. It's kind of dead in here, so I might give it a little bit more room to sell. Totally makes sense. Thanks, Jack. Just going to make sure that this in screen space still has somewhere to go. So I'm zooming in with the 2D pan zoom tool and just making sure it's kind of in arc and has somewhere to go. I'm just thinking about spacing a little bit polishy. We'll get into that soon. And this is just me zooming in on the bulge, which I'm sure a lot of you love. Okay. This is going in Z, but also a little bit more in X, I think, for this anticipate that's going to happen. I think maybe I'm doing too much Z to start. It's very isolated right now. But that's fine. Okay. Have I looked at the chest for this pose? Probably not. There's a lot of stuff I probably missed, which is going to be dead when we get to spline, because I haven't touched it. But we'll do kind of more of a layered approach to make sure that everything is collected and working nice when we get to spline. So that overshot forward, right? So it's still going to be coming back, yeah. Cool, okay. I think we're going to go into the next pose. I think I'm going to play Blast, because I haven't played Blast in a while, and we can have a quick look at where it's at for now. I quite like looking at my reference when it's going frame by frame and kind of studying it as well. There was something that I did with my hand then when I was tensing it. I definitely am going to try and get in the spline pass. Cool, that's working, I think. Definitely is going to be floaty and needs a lot of tightening up when we get to spline. But in terms of making sure that all the mechanics are working and such, I think it's getting there. We've got that main pose change at the end, and then a bit of a settle. I always like to flip, so in keyframe it's Control X, and you get kind of fresh eyes. And it kind of helps you to see where things aren't appealing. For me, a bunch of stuff like making sure this line is clean is something I'm going to have to do with a blend shape. There's a bunch of stuff like that throughout, like making sure that this is a clean line, just to make it more graphic and 2D and works. This looks like he's wearing a diaper. I'm going to have to get this to come out for this whole section. Unfortunately, he doesn't have controllers to do that, so I'll have to do that with some blend shapes, which I've got some tools for, which I'll show you guys in a bit. Cool. We're still tensing up here and sort of starting to really slight ease towards, so I'll get a real slight ease. And maybe even blend it back because it's too much as a general thing. Real slight ease towards the next pose, big pose change in there. So we'll keep this coming around. I'm not really touching the face at all. I've got a couple leftover poses from my initial blocking where I was just trying to get the idea to read, which helps me with the attitude. I don't like having a blank face when I'm animating just because you can't really get the attitude across without the face working. Cool. So this is going to start coming around, tensing up. And he's going to continue to lean in. And what's going on with this? We've gone up, settled here. Kind of moving through there before we come out into here. Okay, that might be fine. Cool, we'll keep going. This is where we got a big transition in here. So I'll put this right in the middle. We're coming around. So I'm going to delay the root especially, so I'm going to blend that back. And the chest a bit. Thank you, Regressive. I'm so terrible with names. But thanks for the follow, man. So the neck's really leading this down. I might push it over more in this pose so that I've got somewhere to go. Yeah, the neck's really leading, and we've gone from tensing this way and we're starting to come back around, but it's still delayed. The jaw's still delayed around here. So just to help illustrate that, I might just move the squash around a bit so that it's a bit delayed. Hey mister, can you give me the picker for the Furry rig? I brought the rig, but I can't find the picker. Well, this is a picker I made myself, actually. But yeah, I'll give it to you. But yeah, I like to make pickers super small because the way that I work is basically all in camera. I do check things in perspective, but I work in camera and I want that to be full screen on my screen and not take up as much space as possible. So there's two pickers I made, which one is a separate one for the face. So when I get into DL on the face, I'll be using this one. So if you go on this WeTransfer link I'll send you and you download it, you should get the files. Here you go, let me post it in chat. Hopefully that works and it's not anything dodgy. Let me know and I'll continue animating and you can let me know if it downloads fine. Cool, so we were looking at this breakdown where the head's going to be leading in back down. So let's continue with that. And that's maybe, I think the forearm is leading and tensing up here, but the rest of the arm's kind of delayed. So I'm just going to blend the whole arm back and then figure it out. So that forearm's going to come up and tense up. And maybe the shoulder can do a little bit of up to have opposing action with that head coming down. The shoulder comes up. And just make sure that's got somewhere to go. Cool. This is gonna be a bit delayed, isn't it? Okay, cool. I think that breakdown. Yeah, it needs a lot of cell and a lot of stuff to figure out between here and here. But let's do that with a tight. I'm going a lot tighter on this because it's snappier. When I was easing before for kind of more general stuff, it was kind of here. on one of these controls, but I'm going way closer to the next pose because it's more of a snappy transition for this. So let's start with the head again as that was leading. I think I'm going to overshoot the neck down and give it somewhere to go when it comes back up, but delay it down. I might have traveled too far, blend it back a little bit. Cool. My goal is to get this blocking plus pass, and then I'll eat some food. I'm going to overshoot that head down so it can scoop up on the way back around. Let's look at the Z. So we had the jaw delayed, so maybe we'll keep the Z coming around as it goes. It's a bit less of an appealing pose, but I like the movement more. Kind of want this to overshoot a bunch. It's going to be a bit more cartoony, so it's a bit more pushed. Cool, let's look at the chest. Going to go down the spine. So the head was leading that movement. So the next thing I'm going to look at is the chest, which is the next thing down the spine. Yeah, so that's coming, rotating down. Back around a bit on itself. Looking at this point again. And this point for the Z. Kind of like that. I kind of don't want the shoulder to come down here so much. It might be cheated in terms of where it's going because it's following the body, obviously. Try and get something in there that I like. 16 viewers. It's an all-time high. Look at that. Amazing. What about this shoulder? I think this shoulder is going to continue to tense up because it's kind of delayed. And that way we get the up on this side and the down on that side. Thank you, Nabby Hobby, for the follow, man. Or gal. Cool. What about this arm? I think I'm going to overshoot it in to get that little arc coming back around this way. On the forearm. Forearm's the thing doing most of the movement here. It's not really doing too much, but I'll give it a little bit of something. It's a bit delayed, but that's fine. For the purpose of this blocking plus pass, I just want to make sure that the information is there and we've got the main lead and follow and the breakup in the body. I had 18. Wow. Look at that. Do you know what I did to make the difference was I posted an image on Twitter instead of just saying I was going live. I posted an image of me live, and I think that gets people's attention a lot better than not. Okay. I don't think I looked at the root yet. I've gone down the spine, but I haven't looked at the root. So maybe on this frame, this stuff's leading, this is overshooting. Okay, now it'll be the next frame. I'll then have the cog on the next one overshoot, I think. So for now, I'll leave it where it is, and I'll have a look at that when I've got another frame to work with. So now we've gone in fast, but I'm gonna make this more of a gradual ease than the previous one. Maybe post a TikTok about it. We'll get all the zoomers then. I guess zoomers probably could be pretty interesting animation. There's tons of more resources out there than when I was growing up to learn. Okay, a little bit of an overshoot in the wrist, but I don't want it to be too much, so I'm going to blend that back. Keep an eye on the shoulder. What's the shoulder doing? Tensing up. Selling. Maybe that's too much. I think the shoulder's coming back, right? With the arm a little bit. Yeah, cool. We'll go to that. I like that. I'm barely looking at the reference at this point because this move is kind of a lot more cartoony than what I have in the reference. But it's all just the same principles on that, isn't it? Right. But this feels gross in terms of an arc because it's just coming across. We're easing down here, but then we're just coming across and not going down for this frame. So I'm going to Make sure that this is kind of in arc. And we'll get this around. I mean, I can even do something fun like get an arc that overshoots back around on itself like this. Look. Don't want it to move too much. Like that. Cool, look at that. Right, rotations on the cog. What's it doing? We're leading down with the X here. X is coming down. Can't really see, so I'm going to go wider. The X is kind of getting to a point where it just eases, so I might overshoot it down a bit in one of these frames. But then it can come back up on itself around here. Just breaking everything up as much as possible at this stage, and then I'll continue to do that as I get into spline. Cool, what about the Z? Z, I think, can continue to ease this way. Cool, because he's leaning on that leg, which means, look, we're going to be putting the weight on that leg a bunch. Maybe these two can ease towards that one using that aimbot. 15 viewers, awesome. Anyone has any questions about what I'm doing? It's kind of the same way of breaking down between the poses that I'm doing for this whole pass. And then I'm almost there. There'll just be some settle stuff for this ending. And this pose is quite a lot different at this point because because I ended up changing the pose that I had before. Especially the neck and shoulders. So let's maybe select the neck and shoulders and head and just blend that way back. These are still going tons, isn't it? Maybe have them go back instead of forward. Which kind of makes sense to me. And then we'll keep the head rotation down a bit. If that's what we're going to be doing. Kind of works with like how he'll be breathing later on. Oops. Cool. Okay, now that makes sense for it to kind of blend to ease here. I will want it to come up a bit more. There you go. Just to continue that round. But I can add a bit more information into this cell with probably one more pose at 4 frames later. So we've basically done this whole thing on 4. Some things is going to have to be snapped up a bunch because of that, but at least by doing it that way, it kind of keeps it structured and I don't lose where I am. Okay. So let's keep this easing in. I think what we want is the head has come down, right? And the head's starting to come up, but the other things are going down. So you get that contrast of the head going up and the other things going down, which is going to look good. Those opposing actions is always very appealing. Let's keep this going around. Agapito 3D. Again, pronounced completely wrong, I guess, but thanks for the flow, man. Let's keep that coming around. Cool. That looks good. Maybe we can lead the shoulders even from this bit so they overshoot up and start to come back down towards where they're going to end up in that final holding pose. Let's maybe do a bit of that here as well. So that they have somewhere to go. Might be a bit much, so what I did earlier, I'm going to do the same thing where I'm just going to select these two and I'm going to hold down shift to blend on animbot and blend it back a bit, and that way it's just not going quite as far. But the kind of spacing differences is maintained, it's because it's blended by the same amount for the two keys. That shoulder's popping down there for me now. Might be a bit too much. I'm just going to keep that arc going around.
Dummy. Spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy. Deplorable dummy.
I think I want to get more kind of Z through the body for this whole move. Maybe I'll pull up my graph editor and look at the Z and the chest in particular and really try and get this to work. So this is... which way is this going? It's actually going the complete opposite way like I'd kind of expect it to. So maybe I want to flip this. I have a shortcut to flip curve, but if you don't, you can type in times equals -1 and that'll flip the shape, although annoyingly then you have to find where to put it, but it's flipped all the information. But if you want to find where to put it, you can snap the buffer curve, because then if you move it, you can see where it was before. Okay, so that leans in after the head a couple frames. Where's this going? Yeah, so maybe we'll... this ease out isn't very even. I want the spacing to get bigger as it goes. And then ease in to get slower. And then this is where it's getting to eventually. I think maybe we'll just scale this curve up a bit. So I'm just going to scale from left in animate, which is shift middle mouse click. I always forget what the shortcut is. I'm looking at it in screen to see what it does. So let's continue that through to the cog as well. What's this doing? Yeah, so we're coming back on ourselves, which I guess makes sense because we're putting the weight on that foot. But maybe I can get the weight on that foot and then come back a bit. Maybe I'll just have this settle from here and then have it come back on itself a little bit. How about that? Now I can just ease these frames using animate into the ending. I guess it might be too much. But in terms of that head leading and the body following, that's kind of what I'm going for. So let's maybe go a bit further. So I've got that buffer curve so I can see what I did have before. Let's get a bit closer to that. Obviously eye lines and such are messed up by that. I might try it again in the chest. I'll flip this so it's just easing. And we just won't go as far. So let's have a look at the chest again and see if I can get what I want out of the chest instead of the cog. Deplorable. And then dummy here. Let's just scale this up as I did before. Might even out the spacing a bit here, because it's a bit too sharp. Get this out of the way so we can see him a bit better. I think maybe what I'm doing is I'm doing it in the Z when it should be more in the X. A lot of fiddliness in here because I didn't really make a clear decision when I was doing it with the chest. Looks a bit dead there, so I'll keep it going. This out's broken as hell. This is what happens when you go by, and then I'll end up going back in and making sure that these curves are way nice and cleaner. Okay, so this, yeah, that leans them forward. So let's just push this, and it's going to settle back on itself in a sec, but let's just give it a little bit more. We'll see how that goes. Make sure that the spacing is progressive. One thing that I think will help with this is if I have him turn back around towards us when he does this. That overshoots. Which way is he turning? Yeah, I kind of had that reaction with the arm though, that's what I was doing. But let's maybe just make this less, so that he's more straight on. Don't really know what's going on in here. Whoa. This is what happens when you do it by eye. You end up with messed up curves. Just ease that in, and it's going to come back. So I wanted the chest to catch up again here. Maybe it will. But these frames will just have that he's in. And then it's going to be easing back out. Progressively getting bigger. And it overshoots. Eases out again. Has the connectivity with the body. Settles and comes back. That's a bit cleaner. Going a bit too far out of the way. Yeah. I don't like how much he comes over now. I'm just going to be fiddling with this in blocking, and then it's all going to change in spline anyway. Okay, that's working better for me. That might be what we had before. But let's, for a blocking plus pass, let's have a look at it. Let's look at this blocking plus pass then.
Spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy.
This is on 4s.
Spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy.
I'm going to clean up a couple things. I might take some notes before I become numb to it from looking at it for too long. And I'll write down a few things I want to clean up in the blocking plus pass before I call it a day. And then we'll get on to spline it in another stream in the future. Song kind of bangs, doesn't it? Alright, let's look at it and I'll see if I can point out some stuff. G Bud, thank you. Thanks for the follow. Think about purchasing that rig. Do you find it too heavy? I don't actually find it heavy at all, but the face and everything else is brilliant. I don't find it heavy at all, and yeah, I'd recommend it. It's a really solid rig. Okay, let's look at this, and I can write down some notes from this pass. I think that turnaround is too fast. Maybe. Turnaround might be a bit too fast. So this is where I might go off. Just in this blocking pass, I might go away from 4s and spread things out and compress things to get kind of snappiness and things a bit longer if they need to be a bit longer. Okay, turn around too fast. I think I'm too early on this. Yeah, I'm too early on this accent. Too early on spare me. So this was where I was using my reference, and my reference was a bit out of time. So I'm just going to push that back. No worries, Jack. Too early on spare me. So I'm just going to push those keys back along the timeline so that it kind of hits the accent a bit better. Too early on spare me. Okay. What's up? What else is going on? I like the rest. There's some mechanics in there that I'm going to clean up. Okay. I'll leave the end for now, apart from... I'll show you guys what I do for shot sculpting. I'd usually leave it till later in the process, but I want to show it so that this pass is super clean. Spare me the comedics, you deplorable I'll flip it just for another look. Fresh eyes.
Spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy.
I think camera-wise we're too far
Comedics, you deplorable.
over. Like he doesn't even get to the center for here, so I'll write that down for a cam fix as well. Writing all this stuff down because otherwise I'll inevitably forget a bunch of it. Okay, so at this point, no more reference. This is all cartoony now. Move me a bit over since we've got full screen. No more references out. I'll look at the reference if I get lost with something, but for now, no more reference. Well, I'm going to do the camera fix first because that affects everything. I like using this little button here to see. So this is the center point. And because of that, I can then look at the camera in 3D space and figure that out. I don't think there are any keys on it, so if I move it, it's going to be a global transform. Let's just move it over a bunch. Yeah, so he's kind of more on the center point throughout, I think. I think for the kind of simple acting shot like this, keeping him either on a third if it matches with the rest of the composition or central is going to be fine.
Spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy.
Just make it so I can see everything. Okay, next little tweak I had was the turnaround is too fast, which when I flipped it I didn't feel like it was, so it might be fine. I mean, if it's any key, it's just that first one. Maybe I'll do a quick 2. Thank you, Yaners Dalton, for the follow. I'm just going to do an ease out at the very start. 2 frames. Just so that we know that it's coming. Obviously, we'll get that when we get into spline, but I'm just trying to make everything kind of work at this stage before we go in more DL. One way that I liked, I think it was a random stream that Joe Darko did, who's an animator that went to the same uni as me, who works at Sony and stuff. And he talked about how he liked to... He's like a painter where he's using the biggest brush possible and making it as good as possible with the biggest brush, which would be like on 4s or 6s or something. And then you get slowly, incrementally, like the brush gets smaller, the frame numbers get smaller. Like a painting analogy for it, which I quite liked. That stuck with me from a random stream. So he's gonna, I don't know, let's keep that leading. Let's just delay the chest and stuff a bit. Okay, just so that when that plays back you can see it. I'm starting to get a bit more into 2s on a couple of these parts to make him read. What was the other thing I had? Too early on spare me. So he says spare here, but we're kind of, this is kind of probably the biggest change. So I kind of want this to be here, like 4 frames later. So maybe for some of that, we can find an area where it's not moving much, like here. This is something, I mean, it probably will still be moving too much, but we'll figure it out. Then I'm just going to move this stuff 2 frames. So that's 2 frames later. And maybe we want to get another 2 frames from somewhere. So I'm going to find something that I want to be a bit snappy. Like this. And I'm going to push this back 2 frames. I'm doing 2 frames because then I'm still on even numbers.
Spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy.
And that dummy feels a bit late. So maybe I'll go 2 frames earlier here and we'll see how that looks. So now we're on a mixture of 2s and 4s throughout. And it's starting to be a bit more fleshed out. The SpongeBob song's back. I might, you know, delay something like this so it's on 6. Just so that it's not, you know, it's got somewhere to go for the cell. Just gonna maybe fix up this cell because it's gonna go a bit mental, I think, when I spline. This is the crab rave. What with Joe Darko? Who is had a smile on his face? Yeah, he's a lovely bloke. I didn't know him too well. He was 2 years above me at university. I didn't know him too well, but he's, yeah, really great animator from the work live scene. He did a stream with Anim Dojo one random time, and that was just a random thing that stuck with me. The Mr. Krabs Crab Rave remix. It's... want to make sure that this is, looks, if anything, he's going more on that leg, I think. Let's keep that going. Okay, so I've done those notes that I've written down, apart from sculpting, but I'll show you sculpting and then we'll call it for now. But let's look at how this looks.
Spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy.
Okay, that's working a lot better for me, timing-wise.
Spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy. Spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy.
Yeah, we're going to get a lot more in depth on the next thing I do when we go into spline. But there, let me show you what I mean when I'm talking about shop sculpting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select his mesh and I'm going to use Anim Polish, which is a Josh Sobel tool. Josh Sobel, the rigger, does CFX stuff as well, and he released this script Anim Polish last year. But then I think he's still working on it, so he took it back, and he's putting out a new version of it. But it's super useful for a bunch of stuff. So with this tool, I can press Sculpt. I can grab some keyframes that I want to move. And if you've used the shape editor before, it's basically the same as the shape editor. It's just a quicker way of doing it and a bit cleaner UI for less technical people like me. I want some soft select so that I can get this leg to come out. And then I'm probably going to go in with the smooth modeling brush to really get that to flow. Just trying to get this line through here to be super clean and flow. Let's go modeling. Is it edit mesh? Mesh tools, sculpting and smooth tool. This one. And I'm just going to smooth this line out. So you can see it's slowly going in. Oh, it went in quite a lot then, but that's fine as long as we carry that through. So now in terms of like a graphic shape to camera, this is way like cleaner, and I'm thinking of it more as like a 2D image at this point. I'm sure in perspective that might look like messy and horrible. But once you're done with it, you press apply on here, and then it's going to give me this, which is keyable. So that's what it was, and this is what it is. This is what I wanted, just clean, you know, clean, easy to read pose instead of this lumpiness. So I'm going to set a keyframe on this as well, so I can key it on and off. Does it mess with anything? No, I prefer it here. Yeah, so around here it's starting to push in on itself when it's no longer a thing. So maybe I'll have it blend between these two frames or something where you can't really see it, although you can because it's on stepped. So let me stick that in auto. I'm just gonna find, I want it to be on the same frames as the 4s that I was on before. And maybe I'll just do over 4 frames in one of these transitions. But I probably want to do it where the leg is less of a vital movement. So let's push it back 4 frames and have it happen when the arm goes past. Cool. So now I've got another bit that I want to sculpt to clean up, which is this whole area here. So let's do that as well. If you have any questions about this whole shot sculpting stuff, like, feel free to ask. If you don't have this tool because it's not available anymore, I'm pretty sure you can go Windows, the animation editors it's in? Shape editor. Whoa, it's opened very big. And it's lagged me out. Okay. So the shape editor, you do the same thing by pressing create blend shape, and then it will come up with one at the very bottom. This guy has so many blend shapes, it's like crazy, right? So yeah, I'd press create blend shape, comes up at the bottom, and then there's an edit button, and whilst the edit button's active, you can move verts around, and then you press edit again, and then it goes from what it was before you pressed edit to what it is when you had edit, and you can key these the same way like I'm keying it here. It's just simpler for me to use this tool where it all comes up here. So let's clean this up. He's naked now. Yeah, let's just get this shape out and then I'll smooth it out the same sort of way I did before. Although I quite like having a little bit of... Yeah, it doesn't need to be so 2D and clean. It can be a little bit bumpy and changing. Because I quite like having those obliques in there that he's got coming in there. Let me smooth this out. So I'm just going to make another... one thing that I wish this tool had was a way to just like edit this again. Which maybe it does, but I'm not aware of it. So I'm just going to press sculpt once again. And I'm going to get that smooth brush out. It's the last tool I used. And I'm going to go into perspective to do this because it might mess me up. But let's clean up this area here. Just smooth it so it's less lumpy through some of this. This has pressure sensitivity, luckily, so on my tablet I can really like lightly touch it. Okay, that looks a little bit better. Let's zoom in and do it from this perspective as well. Yeah, there you go. So that lumpiness is going now. And it can be super smooth. I can clean this up, this line here as well. There you go. That's better. Cool. So once again, I'll select the object and apply it. And here we go. Cool. All right. Let's play blast it and look at that once again. And then I think for this pass, that's about done. Okay, let's look at this blocking plus pass.
Spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy.
Cool. So there's going to be a lot of work in the future with getting this spline pass. I'm sure I'll press spline and it will look horrible. But for now, let's flip it.
Spare me the comedics, you deplorable dummy.
Yeah, for now I think, you know, the body stuff is there the way I want it to be there before I go forward. And then it's just spline and polish really. Lots of face stuff obviously to do. Looking good, thanks Owen. At what point do you start and stop following your reference? That's a good question, Jack. So at this point I wouldn't use my reference really, unless I was checking. If something felt wrong, I would look back at my reference. So up until this point I pretty much used my reference, and then I ended up offsetting some of the keys to make the kind of beats hit easier. So I still have all the information from the reference of, you know, lead and follow and bit of like body dynamics and stuff, but then and now it actually matches the audio a bit better, and I've pushed a bunch of stuff. You're not really like copy. I'm using the reference, but like some of the poses are completely different to, or like way more push than the reference. Yeah, I'm trying to push, like I'm looking at the reference. I'm looking at kind of like the head, chest, and hips, and trying to push those angles and things. Like, so it's a bit more dynamic and a bit more appealing. And then the transitions especially will be very pushed. Like this when I get to spline, it's going to be quite pushed and very different. So at this point, when I've got the structure there from the reference, I'm basically chucking it out. Hopefully that answers that question. So up until around this stage, I'll be using the reference. And then from then on I will. Approve of that picker, it's beautiful. Yeah, Owen, you love a mini picker. Look at this wide boy. I made the legs super short because otherwise the picker needs to be like this long, right? And there's only like a couple controls on the legs, so what's the point? Alright, if anyone else has anything to ask, go ahead. If not, I'll dip out. And as I say, I'll be back tomorrow. I'm gonna go into spline, and I'll try and do a spline body pass tomorrow, and then for a stream. I think I'll try and do a section per stream. So I'll try and do a spline body pass, and then the one after will be like face, and then it'll be like polish, clean up stuff, and that'll be the shot. I think that's how I'm gonna go about it. Thanks guys, see you in a bit. Bye bye bye.